Welcome to the Brigham Young University Family History Library webinar series. Feel free to use the chat box for any questions. If you are unable to get to them during the presentation, they will be answered at the end. My name is Braden Knudsen. I will be your host for this webinar today. Today we'll be pleased to hear from James Tanner, who will be giving an update on MyHeritage.com. James Tanner has a bachelor's degree in Spanish and a master's degree in linguistics from the University of Utah. He received a Juris Doctor degree in law at Arizona State University. He served for 2 years as an intelligence analyst for the U.S. Army and 39 years as an Arizona trial attorney. He has previously owned a retail computer business and an Apple Macintosh software company. James has over 32 years experience in genealogical research and is an avid blogger of Genealogy Star blog and Rejoice and Be Exceedingly Glad. He served for 10 years as a missionary at the Mesa, Arizona Family Search Library and is currently serving at the BYU Family History Library. He has presented at expos and conferences around the U.S. and Canada. James has 7 children and 32 grandchildren.
Howdy, this is James Tanner. We're here for an update on MyHeritage from the BYU, the Brigham Young University Family History Library in Provo, Utah. MyHeritage is one of the partner websites for FamilySearch.org. FamilySearch has begun to digitize their huge collection of microfilms, which began to be created back in 1938, and they ended up with about 2.4 million rolls of microfilm. That microfilm collection is being shared as it's digitized. The digitized images in many cases are being shared by the partner programs, and so you're going to see, if you use MyHeritage, some of the records that are on FamilySearch.org. However, presently, MyHeritage has about 6.3 billion records that it's digitizing, and according to my watching the website, the number of records goes up by 100 million about every month or so. So it's a tremendously active and extremely valuable website for research. Okay, so what we're gonna do today is kind of go through the program and talk about some of the new features and some of the things that how you might use this program to the best advantage for doing your genealogical research. First of all, MyHeritage, this is the MyHeritage homepage. There looks a little bit complicated. A lot of people get to this point and say, well, now what am I supposed to do? Actually, there's not a whole lot you're supposed to do at this point. What you're doing here is allowing the program to look for genealogical sources, if you will, for the individuals that you have in your family tree. MyHeritage is basically a family tree program. The idea here is that you put your pedigree, family tree, your genealogical file into this program, and then the MyHeritage will search for records that match the individuals in your family tree at a very high degree of accuracy. It runs about I would guess somewhere around 97-98% accuracy on their what are called record matches. We'll talk about that in a little more detail. But that's kind of the idea of the program. The idea in the program is not necessarily to come in here and search for a name of one of your ancestors in their database, but to use this, let this program do the work for you in searching for records for each of the people that you put into a family tree. In addition, this program is basically a social networking program that allows you to contact other individuals who are probably related to you because you share common ancestors. The program uses what are called smart matches to do that, and I'll also explain that in a little more detail. That's kind of the overall idea of the program. It's a program that enables contacts between individuals who are related through a common ancestor or a number of common ancestors, and that also provides source material, and it enables you to expand and add to your family tree with valid sources that such as census records, birth records, uh, death records, all newspapers, books, all sorts of different things that you can that it will search automatically to find mentions and information about your ancestors. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is to sign in. And when you sign in to MyHeritage for the first time, the program will take you through a little procedure where you can add in your name, your parents' names, um, some basic information, including birth years and places where they were born, and kind of important to put in the places and the dates at this level. And then add in the parents of your mother's parents and your father's parents, in other words, your grandparents. With that initial information entered into the program, MyHeritage will then spend a few seconds looking for connections. And in this case, I've seen anywhere from 20 or 30 new people added to instantly to your family tree to close to 100 people added at one time. Uh, how does it do this? Well, it does this by searching through uh, what are called public record information, particularly here in the United States and elsewhere. This includes people who are alive, and so they are actually searching through records for live people as well as people who are deceased. But on the other hand, the people who are deceased, who are alive, and if they're included in the program, your tree on MyHeritage is your tree. It's your private tree. Unless you uh, actively invite someone to be a part of your tree or participate, no one can change it or make any alteration to it. In addition, anyone who is alive or is designated alive in your tree is invisible to any third parties, anybody outside of the people you have invited to be participating in your tree. So the sign-in process is important because that initiates the searching of the individuals in using the program and using the tools that are there. Um, the second thing to understand about the program is that this is actually their terminology, a website, your website. And in your website, you can also belong to to other websites. So if you look at your list of websites and you've agreed to become a part of someone else's website or someone else's family tree, then you're going to have a number of different websites listed. Within each website, for example, within your own website, you can also have multiple family trees. So you can, if you wish to do so, you can break your ancestry down into different segments. I would not encourage that because that diffuses some of the advantages that you have in the program in finding record hints. But I would also suggest that you can use other trees in here if you happen to be uh, want to separate your parents into your maternal line from your paternal line, for example. Um, so in addition to that, you have a link right here to go to your tree, and there's also a link next to that for photos and also for some from stats, family statistics that we'll talk about in just a minute. Now, the first part of this is what I mentioned, and this is where it will show up, and these are the smart matches. And the smart matches, as I said, are essentially invitations to contact other individuals who are identified as your relatives through sharing a common ancestor or multiple ancestors in your family tree that match someone else's family tree. Now, if you think about it, um, if you upload a very large file, a lot of people have uh, quite a few names, maybe thousands of names in a family file in some program. Uh, you can upload that entire file to MyHeritage. This is done through what's called a GEDCOM or a GEDCOM GEDCOM file, where you export your document, your data from your other program into a GEDCOM format, and then you import that GEDCOM file into and upload it to MyHeritage. Um, the advantage of doing that is that you will very quickly get record matches. Now, on the other hand, the disadvantage of it is you'll very quickly get record matches and you'll get smart matches. And these can become overwhelming if you have a very large family tree. So there's some strategies there that I'll talk about a little bit later. But the idea here is that it is kind of a good idea to pace yourself and let the program work on adding people into your family tree. So let's suppose that you have a few names in your tree. You put in your grandparents and none of their children and none of their parents. Well, MyHeritage will find sources like census records or vital records or um, any other records that may have been available in their huge database. And then they will ask if you want to add those records to your family tree. And as you do so, then anyone who is found in these new records that is not already in your family tree will be added in to your MyHeritage family tree. So your family tree can possibly grow very, very quickly from the records that become available. Now, what about the global reach of this program? MyHeritage is a company that was started about 12 years or so ago in Tel Aviv, near Tel Aviv, Israel, and its offices are in a suburb, a small town next to Tel Aviv, Israel. And it has spread worldwide and has tens of millions of members around the world in virtually every country that has any kind of presence on the internet. And so the advantage of having all of this information available is increased by the far-reaching nature of the program. Now we have record matches, and I mentioned that briefly. Those record matches are the result of the program in MyHeritage searching through all of the 6.3 billion records that it has available and matching up the people in your family tree with records that talk about each of the individuals or families in your family tree. In my case, as we'll see in a minute, I have over 16,000 record matches sitting out there with my family tree. What I did was quite a few years ago, uploaded my entire program, my entire genealogical file, thousands of people into MyHeritage. This was before they had these record matches and smart matches and things like that. And so when they implemented these searching processes, that immediately I started to get a lot of what are called record matches and smart matches. And now I have over 100,000 smart matches waiting, meaning there's 100,000 possible um, people in my family tree that match with that many. I mean, the total of people who match in my tree with everyone else's trees exceeds 100,000 people. So It's not that I have 100,000 people in my family tree, but that the matches, multiple matches of the same person, for example, can create a large number like that. Okay, so it's very dynamic and very always suggesting new things, always um, going through the new records that are uploaded and adding in additional record matches as new record collections are added to the MyHeritage database. Now this is the family tree view. This may be a little bit different than what you're used to from some of the other programs. The tree view that's here is basically something that most of the people who are on this program have or would expect. Individuals are connected together by lines. Marital people who are married are connected by a horizontal bar and other parts of the program. So each of these color-coded rectangles here are represent an individual ancestor, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of these different people out there who are related to you. Down at the bottom of the corner, there is a little utility that will give you an expanded view of the family tree to aid you in navigation. This can end up, if you have a lot of people in your family tree, this can end up being very, very wide and very high on your screen and exceeds the capacity of your screen to show all of the detail. So this is an aid for navigating. Now the little pink and blue, or red and blue, it looks like, depending on your screen color, little I call them rabbit ears that stick up on the backs of these of each individual is a way to expand that particular line. So, for example, if I were to click on those little red and blue lines there, then that person that is right there in the family tree would then become the basis for his expanded ancestry. So what a way is it's a way of collapsing down the family tree so that you're not overwhelmed looking at all the information at once. Now, if we look down in more detail at the navigation view, that little icon that was down in the left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see that this is a schematic view of the entire family tree, and there's a green rectangle that kind of floats over the family tree, and that green, you can grab that green rectangle with your mouse cursor, just click on it and hold it down. You can drag it around on the tree and change the view that you're looking at. As soon as you let it would go back to viewing that portion of the tree that was covered by the green rectangle you see there. So it kind of gives you a blow-up view after it's been selected. You can also drag that green arrow around, and you'll get used to where your people are on your tree that you're researching, for example, and you'll be able to drag that green rectangle right over to those people, and then you can quickly find them for doing searches. This is kind of a zooming in a little bit so you can see a little more detail with the people who are represented by these rectangles in the family tree. First of all, there's a little tiny green icon, and that shows you that for this person, for Thomas Parkinson, who was born in 1830, there are waiting smart matches. That means that the program has found people who share Thomas Parkinson with you in the family tree. So you would find other people who were related to or descendants of Thomas Parkinson by clicking on that. And again, this is more of in the nature of an invitation. There is no compelling reason why you would want to establish contact with some of the people simply because of the time involved. And in my case, as I mentioned, 100,000 of these smart matches is kind of overwhelming. And the best way to approach that is to take control of the program and only view those people who you are serious about researching and serious about contacting ultimately. The second part of this is a little brown or reddish brown icon called for record matches. So when this appears on the family tree, like it does on both of these individuals, that means that the program has found record matches for those individuals, meaning there are documents out there that were found in the record collections maintained by MyHeritage that talk about your ancestors. This could be anything from a newspaper or census record to a land and property record to a court record, whatever. So it's a record that is they're finding for you without any particular effort on your part. As I mentioned previously, the little what I call rabbit ears are a method of expanding the tree. Clicking on this, for example, with a spouse would switch from looking at Thomas Parkinson's expanded tree, his ancestors usually going back 2 or 3 generations, and his wife Marianne Parkinson's Parkinson Bryant's um, expanded family tree. Now, there is a drawer or a sidebar on the side, and it has a very almost indistinguishable little arrow up in the upper right-hand corner of the blue bar. I can sort of highlight it with my cursor here a little bit, and that opens and closes this sidebar, which contains links to look at the preview and to take some actions with various individuals. Whoever you have selected in your family tree by clicking on their icon in the family tree will show up here in this sidebar. So if I wanted to switch it to his wife, I would simply go over and click on his wife, and then the information shown would change to that individual. So you can click up here in the corner to open or close this. And if you do open it up to the profile, this is an individual profile for someone in the program. This particular one is for, once again, for Thomas Parkinson, and it shows some information, basic information about the individual. Down at the bottom of the window are members of his immediate family, his parents, his spouse or spouses if there are multiple marriages, and children. And so those are all going to show up here with links to their individual records. But also right there in the middle of the screen, you'll see a selection of record sources that have been previously approved by me because they have a green checkbox on them, which means that I've looked at them and attached them to his profile. And if there were any additional suggested sources, they would also appear here. And there's a little number up in the little faint number that you can hardly see up in the right-hand corner above the one picture that has a photograph. And that tells you the total number of those record sources that may be available for this individual. So up at the top of the screen, there is a link to discoveries. Now, the Discoveries is a rather recent addition to MyHeritage, but it is a very valuable one. The reason is that because of their accuracy, they're able to suggest additional names and additional records for your pedigree, for your family file that probably you would not have know enough or realize that you could go look for. The next thing is that there is a timeline that is automatically generated for each individual. There are an events tab. Um, the individual nature, you notice here there isn't a lot of information about Thomas Parkinson. The events line will give you places to record much more information about the individual. Last, you have an info, and that's what we're showing here. This is the info tab, and this is the kind of information that you'll see there. Primarily the sources that have been added to the program from whatever source they came. Could have been another program. It could have been through um, just about any other location if you wanted to do that. Um, some people use MyHeritage as their primary database program. I might mention that MyHeritage also has a desktop program called the Family Tree Builder, and it is a free program, and it was just recently updated, and is a very highly rated program by the genealogical software review people who who do their software reviews. And because of that, the program has kind of multifaceted. You can keep your primary information on the desktop, and by using a program like Family Tree Builder, you can synchronize that data with the information that's online. There are some different reasons for doing that, and there's always an ongoing discussion in the genealogical community about the need for desktop programs as these online programs evolve and develop more and more features. Okay, so if you click on the Events tab, then you get a list of the events that occurred in that person's life in the nature of a timeline. When you click on the timeline, you get a visual representation of the information, including uh, little icons representing all of the individuals as they're born and marry and have children, and the information in the program expands. The Discovery tab is quite new. It was added not too long ago, and this is a very dynamic and uh, can be sort of seem excessive in a way because of the amount of information that it supplies and the amount of connections that it makes. It is a tremendous benefit to someone who has not looked in a lot of different places for information about their ancestors, because the information that will be given here, it adds names and additional people to your family tree. So it's an automated system. And in this case, the person in the center of this diagram is the number one who's already part of my family tree. When I merge this file into the family tree where my ancestor is being stored or being maintained, then this will automatically add in all of those additional people. And then the process begins again with more people. So where do these come from? And why do they know that there's all these additional records? Well, this because of the millions practically speaking, of family trees out there and all of the shared relatives that I have with for each of these individuals. So as those people who share this person with me, as they match records and attach those records, then the program gets a higher and higher degree of accuracy in finding additional people who are mentioned in the programs in the first place. So from that standpoint, you're depending on the program to add in these people. Now, one thing I'd say, it's kind of a caution here, is before adding people into your pedigree, I would suggest that you, if you don't know the people right offhand, I would suggest you do a little bit of study and find out if the program in fact has selected the right people. That's still up to you. No matter how good these programs get, no matter how reliable they are, there should be an actual person reviewing whether or not this information comes into the family tree. The next is a pretty interesting area of family statistics about the gender, the living versus deceased, relationship status, and all sorts of other information. The there's quite a long list of other types of statistics on places and other common names and all sorts of things in analyzing your database, your family tree information. Here, for example, is another section called places, and where your family is plotted onto a map of the world, and you can see where they came from, where they may have, where most of the people on your tree are originating. In my case, you can see we're heavily in the United States, and then if you were to look at this closely, you'd see that it grayed out as Canada and England and some parts of Scandinavia, primarily Denmark, and then a little bit in Australia. There's another part of the statistics, or the family ages. In this case, it's giving you an age distribution for the people in your family tree, and giving you the oldest living person and the one who lived the most years. Kind of interesting on this is that if you fail to mark someone deceased, the program considers them to be alive. So you could have a very, very old person in here, but simply by virtue of the fact that you forgot to mark them as deceased. So you might want to go through and do that. Now you notice though on the pictures there, they're small, but you can see there's a diagonal black line across the people who lived the most. Someone who lived to be 106 years old. I assume that may or may not be correct for the 107-year-old one. It could be with the Jarvis, that could be a possibility. They seem to be very long-lived people. That horizontal black line is the indicator that the program has those people marked as deceased. Another interesting way that the program looks at the data is through family births. Their zodiac sign and when they were born, all sorts of things like this, some of which I'm sure we could that aren't going to be a benefit to some of us, but this is always interesting to look and see how various statistics apply. This is an analysis of the family marriages, and this could be either very comforting information or very disturbing information, depending on how many of your ancestors managed to get divorced. So this is keeping track of the stability of the marriages in your family, and also the number of divorces. So that that's kind of the summary of the smart matches as being a method of contacting or identifying relatives who share a common ancestor with you. And the record matches that give you a suggested sources with additional information about the individuals in your family tree. They're both, the links are right over here on the left-hand side of the screen where the red rectangle appeared. Here's what they look like on my family tree. As I mentioned earlier, I have some addition, a little bit in excess of 16,000 record matches, and I have over 100,000 smart matches. Now, if you think about this even for a few seconds, you'll realize that there's probably no way in the universe that I am going to ever be able to process all 16,000 of those record matches. Possible, I suppose, but I probably won't spend the time to do it. So what am I going to do with these? And that even goes without mentioning the 100,000 or more smart matches I have. Well, here's my suggestion. My suggestion is that if the smart matches and the record matches kind of get out of hand because there are so many, I mean, you think about that now as genealogists after spending, in my case, over 33 years searching for records, to have somebody putting out records faster than I can possibly even process them is nothing short of phenomenal. But on the other hand, we still have to come to grips with the reality of adding in records that are when sources are found so quickly. So what I'm kind of, my suggestion in this regard is that the program become like a warehouse where you are in researching for a specific person and you're looking to see whether or not the program has found any records for that specific person or for his or her family. So that's one way of handling the overwhelming number of record matches. I might mention that I am working through them. I've done hundreds and hundreds of them, but fortunately for the future of this program, they are still adding more and more records at all times, and so the number of record matches continues to increase. Now, once again, and I can't emphasize this enough because even though I say it to people, they still have a tendency to um, be so concerned about whether or not they should match up with one of their relatives. And I guess the main question would be this, is who is initiating the contact and why are they initiating the contact? In other words, if you can't get some clear information from the other party as to who or what was being done, all I can say is that you'll probably end up with a lot more talking to a lot more people and getting a lot more email than you thought you needed. Now, of course, if you just love to get email and you feel like you've been neglected and nobody wants to talk to you, this is a good way to all of a sudden get a whole bunch of good friends who probably are related to you. Now, one of the advantages, and I failed to mention this yet, of smart matches, and let me go back to that for just a second, um, is if your ancestors came from a place where the records are presently not easily obtainable. So if your family came from Eastern Europe, for example, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, someplace like that, then where are you going to get records for that person in the United States? The answer is you probably won't find very many, if any. But if you connect with somebody through a smart match, then that person lives in the country, speaks the language, knows where the records are, and is interested enough in genealogy to have put up a family tree. So that is definitely somebody you want to talk to, and someone who probably can collaborate with you in extending your pedigree. Now, what happens if you don't want to maintain any contact? You can actually initiate or terminate the contact at any time. There's a way of managing that through the program. Okay, now we're to the record matches. And as I mentioned earlier, I have over 16,000 total record matches, and I've processed a few hundreds of them. So it's actually down into 15,000 something. That's not very much comfort, I guess. But it does, it's always available to come in here and get additional sources. It just is like every time you run out of research and you can't seem to find any more people, you can come here to MyHeritage and always find more sources and more people to add to your family tree. First of all, you can go to you can make some choices here. You can look at this view, in which case you select the record to look at the records by the location of where they came from. So the first group of records you see there comes from Family Search Family Tree, and in fact your family tree in MyHeritage is connected directly to the family tree in on Family Search. It's a one-way deal, however. The information can come from Family Search into the MyHeritage family tree, but as of yet, they have not initiated a reciprocal source transfer. So it's either copy or paste or use a program called recordseek.com. It's recordseek.com to assist you in adding sources from MyHeritage to the Family Search family tree. So this is one view, and this is the view by collection, you might say, or by location. This is one way of looking at it. The second way of looking at it is to look at people. Now, I would suggest that depending on where you are in your research, if you're just starting out and you've just put in a newly minted tree into MyHeritage, I would strongly suggest that you work by source and add all of the census records first and then add some of the other records. The reason for this is pretty simple. If you are if you're working on your family tree and you are, when you're starting out, you want all the help you can get, and you want to get all of the people that you can find added in. As you continue to work on your tree, you may want to go to looking for people directly. So go to one of your ancestors that you're actively researching and to use MyHeritage to see if MyHeritage has found any records for that person or for members of his family or whatever that might assist you in identifying more information. And the program has what's called a filtering option. And the filtering option lets you choose to show or not show certain information. It's pretty straightforward. But in this case, we are going to check it and open it up so that we can click on the option that says show the confirmed. We have enough with looking at all of the record hints and other sources that are provided through the smart matches and whatever. But we would, once we've confirmed a record, we probably don't need to look at it again in the context of searching for more records. Now that's not entirely correct because you may have to refer back to an old record in order to get that information. But in this case, what we're doing is we're unchecking the confirmed box so that any of the records that we've already confirmed are not shown again in the record matches. So when I do that, then the box becomes unchecked and the options and the number of records that are being viewed decreases by the number that have already been matched. So once you're to this point, you should select a source or a person to work on. So here's a bunch of records that could be used to add to a member of your family tree. They're listed here in sort of a different order. There's a filter that you can change the order that all of these databases and the people in your own database are sorted so that you can have alphabetical listings and things like that. In this case, we looked for life signs and found out that we had people out there who needed certain types of records. My sort of preference is to work with U.S. Census records first because they have a tendency to add more people, and then go to other interesting records like the newspapers and things like that that perhaps aren't and are not available in other programs. So here, for example, we're going to choose to add a 1900 United States Federal Census record. In this case, I have 83 matches. That's 83 people in my family tree who appear and have been found in the 1900 census. And then we're going to go through a little bit of a procedure here after we've chosen a person to that has been matched. I'm going to take very much care to review the record matches. Although they are extremely accurate, they're not 100%, and you need to use your judgment as to whether or not to add the record. Now, here's one of the things that comes up often. For example, I may have already found a 1900 U.S. Census record for one of my people, or is someone in the family in another program, for example. However, here it is very important to approve each of those record matches because the program will actually build on your confirming the matches and provide you with even more source matches. So you're very important to do that. You'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. Always do not assume that when it comes up it's the same person. It may be very close. Most of these programs, including MyHeritage, Family Search, Ancestry, are only extremely accurate for about the last 200, 250 years. Before that, the number of records available and the names and the similarity of names makes their record hints less accurate than they would otherwise be more in a more current time period. Make sure you look at the names, dates, and the places all match. And of these, the places are the most important. It's very possible that two people could be born with the same name and in the same year, but it's very unlikely that they were born in exactly the same place. So in those cases, the places become more important. Now, once you've chosen a person to add to the record, in this case, Mary Ellen Sutton, who marries a person by the name of Cowan and becomes Mary Ellen Cowan, make sure they match. This is really the threshold here. Is my person, the one that's been found by the program, the same as the one that has been located in the record match? So you click on the little link that says review the match, and then you get a total extracted summary of the document. In the case of U.S. Census records, MyHeritage has extracted all of the information, including the extensive citation information from the U.S. Census records. So this would be the person from the record, and this would be the person from your family tree. So the one on the left is the family tree, and the one on the right with the bigger fields, more expansive field box, is the person from the record that we're looking at. So here's, you go scroll down and go through the record. You can even look at the image of the record and go out there. Bear in mind that if you do this, then you're going to have to come back to the program again, because you're going to be out to looking at the document. Then you have to come back to the window. Now this brings up the next step, and that is if you look down at the bottom of this page, you'll see something called the record detective. And the record detective is that process that I mentioned a second ago, where after you have confirmed a record, in fact now after you've opened a record, the program will automatically go search for additional records that pertain to the members of the family. So kind of here you're getting a number of additional records. I've seen the number here of additional record detective matches be anywhere from 6 or 8, a handful of records, out to as many as 100, almost close to 100. I think we've seen 99 records in the record match queue down here. The record also contains the names of the family members. I would make sure that you are talking about the same family. Sometimes, particularly with Scandinavian, Welsh, and some English families, things like that. Even in the United States, you'll find families that have names so similar that you are almost certain that they're the same family, and then when you look at the names of the family members, they don't seem to match, and then the places seem to not match either. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, the record detective will give you additional records. In this case, there were 23 additional records that were found for this particular person. Now, that means that with the one click and the one confirmation of one record, you now have 23 additional records to try to attach that individual person. And record matches add in new people to your family tree. So as you look at a record like the census record, then you get an icon listing over here on the side of the family members. And this is basically a mother and father with one child. But if there are a large number of children, you're going to see a long list of icons there on the side. And the new family member will be added who was not previously in the program. This is not that's actually not very unusual for my family tree, because like many genealogists, I focused on my direct line ancestors, my bloodline ancestors, and as I added records going back in time, it became more and more difficult, and eventually I kind of petered out on adding anybody further on any of the lines. Presently, though, we're working on adding all of the descendants of these people to my family tree, and this program becomes extremely valuable because it's automatically adding descendants as well as the ancestors as it goes back. It goes both directions equally as effectively. Okay, well that's kind of the coverage of what's in MyHeritage. I'd say as a kind of as a summary here at the end that MyHeritage is rapidly expanding. It's one of the most innovative companies, if not the most innovative company out there today, and they are always adding new, extremely valuable and dynamic features to their program, as well as whole selections of records. For example, recently they've been adding a tremendous number of records from Denmark. The reason being is that they have an agreement with the government to add all of those records as civil and other records to that are available from the government in Denmark. And it's really literally a big enough company now. MyHeritage is a big enough company that it can negotiate for records from an entire country. So I suggest that you get busy. It is a subscription website. There is an annual subscription fee. You have to determine whether or not you want to pay that additional fee. It is, however, free to members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who have an LDS account, um, and they can be on this program for free, and they should be putting up their family tree and reaping the benefits from all of these various sources that are available.